So yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to Genesis Block, obviously, for hosting us tonight. This is a really nice venue here. So I actually flew in a few hours ago from County Cork in the lovely Emerald Isle of Ireland. And it's quite significant for me to be giving a presentation on Hennessy Road. I don't know if many of you understand the history of Hennessy Road. It's named after John Pope Hennessy from the lovely County Cork. He was the 9th governor of Hong Kong, if anybody knows your history. And he was significant for the history of Hong Kong because he lifted the ban on Chinese who were considered second-class citizens by the British to actually invest and to buy land. So it was the idea of land ownership extended as a right to Chinese people, which actually led to the boom, which is known as Wan Chai in central Hong Kong today. So yeah, it's very significant to be here for me. These are the types of things that go through my mind on a daily basis. I'm very interested in philosophy. When I first came across blockchain, it was during my studies as a philosophy student in Cork. And instead of trying to give a technical presentation, I want to bring you through maybe a conscious shift for a moment to think about like what all this means, and hopefully these slides should work. So I'm CEO of a company called Festy, and instead of boring you with the details about this payments company, which might be interesting towards the end once you understand why we're doing this, I came across this pretty cool artist recently called Paweł Antemer. He's a Polish artist, and in 2008 he brought a bunch of Polish people from his neighborhood in Warsaw. He dressed them up in golden astronaut uniforms, and he brought them around the world to travel. And what he was trying to display was the socialist movement or communist movement, which moved into a capitalist regime, and how people here could not normally afford to travel to the West, but actually they were able to travel because he saw these people as currency. And so that's one of the thoughts I want to leave you with today and on the beginning of this talk. We're all currency. And what does that mean? Well, you've seen a very, very well articulated presentation by Roger earlier, who I'm quite fond of the datum protocol, and he's, I suppose, building something like data to understand as currency, and that's maybe a little hint as to where I'm going with this. So yeah, you could imagine these like quite young, hip, ravageous young people traveling the world for free, but they weren't doing it for free, of course. They were actually contributing, as they are themselves a living, breathing, golden currency. I think this picture was actually taken in Berlin, or at least I like to think so, if anybody's ever been to Berlin. So, a human currency. There's like so many questions as to a human currency. I love questions. So, where does the value of a human currency come from? Oh, that's our ravers. Where does the value of a human currency come from? To whom is a currency based on a human valuable to? Who produces this currency? Who is the consumer? These are basic economic questions that I think everybody should answer, or should ask, especially with tokenizing everything at the moment. So one answer that I found was based on Foucault, his human capital. Foucault was a French philosopher from the 19th century. Instead of boring you too many details about him, he basically looked at this idea, and there was a shift from economics into rational economics. So he believed that a human capital, a human, is built up of experiences and education. These experiences and education give them better decision-making power, and this decision-making power is what drives a rational economy. This idea was basically held by a long, long time. This is a Scottish philosopher named Adam Smith. He came up with free market capitalism, which I'm sure everybody here probably in some way interacts with. So human capital for Adam Smith is the acquisition of ... talents during education, study, or apprenticeship. Costs a real expense. So there's actually an actual cost behind this experience, which is a capital in a person. Those talents are part of his fortune, and likewise that of society. This is his spinning top here, which is a monument based after Adam Smith. So it's an interesting way of thinking about it, right? I don't think it's a complete picture, but it's to help you on the train of thought of human currency as basically this thing that is invested on by parents, by our education systems, by our governments. So we are valuable in and of ourselves. Okay, Crazy, but true. So taking this idea further, I kind of like to think of data as, our problem with rubbish. It's completely inefficient. We have absolutely no idea where it goes. And by the time we realize that this is a problem, it's always a little bit too late, too little and too late. So that's why I really think it's interesting to be around certain people who are working in this industry of blockchain to look at the question of data. And that's kind of where it led me in my thought experiment when I was thinking about this is, well, human currency today, in the 21st century, with the invention of blockchain as a result of Satoshi Nakamoto and many more cryptographers that came before, those conglomerate of people, it's understood as data. So we accumulate data at an exponential rate. Roger gave you the figures earlier. I need not to talk about this in too much detail, but that is essentially what we are. We are data creating human currency. Great. Where do I cash in? Maybe on datum. That's one way. But actually, someone else is more than likely profiting from your data, your currency. They're spending it, they're trading it, they're using it, they're watching it, and that causes maybe a bit of a problem for some people. I expect it should, because that ownership actually belongs to you. And I believe with the invention of blockchain technology, we can begin how valuable we actually are and monetize that data. So about 2 years ago, I came up with this product called Festy. So what is Festy? Festy began as a pretty simple idea, getting payments into people's hands. This is one of the wristbands that we use. We use this at music festivals mostly. We did the largest music festival in Ireland last year, named Electric Picnic. It's one of the largest festivals in Western Europe. And we allowed staff members to purchase food with their tokens. So I was just tokenizing the idea of food vouchers, basically. So that got a bit boring, and we thought, okay, how do we take this a little bit further? What's the real problem? Well, the real problem is actually insights, data. How do we understand this data and information? And how do we truly own it, and how do we sell it, and how do we trade it? Or if we don't want to sell it or trade it, how do we keep it as our own? So bringing it from a kind of one-tap solution where you can tap, you have your cryptocurrency card, you can load various different cryptocurrencies on it, right? We're not trying to be another cryptocurrency. There's many great ones out there already, like Bitcoin or whatever. So we allow people to be able to use this in a real life. It's not just about cryptocurrencies though, because if you talk to the 99% of the rest of the world, they're not using it. They're not using it in a day-to-day capacity. I'd like to think that most people here, if you know or understand cryptocurrency, you believe in its utility and you are using it on a day-to-day basis, and that you have at least 99% of your capital in cryptocurrency, or at least a stable currency if you're like DAI, if you don't like the volatility. And actually that is a major thing that we found, was the stability of currencies when we talk to these merchants. And it's actually not very hard to convince a merchant to move on to anything. You could tell them to accept magic beans if they thought that people were using magic beans and it was a legitimate payment method for them to accept. But when they fluctuate at such a high velocity as cryptocurrency, it can be a bit difficult. So that's where I'm very interested in the DAI coin, and definitely think there's a very bright future for B2B for a stable cryptocurrency such as that. So these are some of the problems and some of the issues that we bumped into along the way, and then we basically discovered, okay, actually what we're kind of coming out here, what we're interested in is the insights and data around what people are spending, say at a music festival, for example. There's no real way or technology that allows you to understand where people are. That can be troublesome when you're trying to figure out where the ambulance is, or how you get an ambulance through a crowd of people. So I myself am an ambulance driver at some of these music festivals, and I take care of people just before they fatally overdose, and hopefully they don't, but we have to deal with getting through a crowd of 10 or 20,000 people, where we don't know at what time, and in the live scenario, when a concert is going to finish, and these swarm of, it's like fish, if you've ever gone snorkeling, coming against you, and you're trying to drive someone who's puking beside you on top of you, and you're like, Jesus. And so then you go out of the gate, and it's like, okay, show me your ticket. And it's like, fuck off. Like, it's like, are you serious? And so you're tapping your ticket, and they use RFID technology, which, you know, fair enough, but a lot of it is QR code based still. And QR code is quite familiar, I think, with a lot of Asian communities here for payments. But for ticketing, like, in a live environment, it kind of sucks. So you might spend like 5 or 6 times trying to tap, and then you got to grab his wrist and tap it 5 or 6 times, and then you get to leave the gate and get him into a real ambulance and let me go back into the music festival and take care of more people. So this was kind of a big thing that we wanted, was to introduce technology into music festivals, events, merchants, point-of-sale terminals, and really begin to understand loyalty, begin to understand merchant capabilities such as purchasing power, ticketing, a few other things here, access control and stuff like that. So yeah, like data insights is a big thing that we're building at the moment. This is just a demo that we did at a music venue in Cork City recently, where we integrated our point of sale system, and there was maybe about 60 people that were given a wristband on the way in. They could download the app, they could load cryptocurrency. There was Bitcoin, Ethereum and Dash at the time, but we've extended way beyond this. They could also just put in with their normal currency if they wanted. And that kind of begged the question as to, okay, well, why would a consumer want to opt into this system? Right? We've understood it from the festival, we've understood it from the merchant, right? They want insights, they want analytics, they want a more robust, efficient system. And so for the consumer, well, actually, they're already tapping a card. That card is centralized, that card belongs to the bank, that card is selling your data to insurance companies, and those insurance companies are affecting your premiums based on your spending power. If you purchase alcohol, unfortunately, that will give you a negative rating. If you eat steak dinners, that will give you a negative rating. If you're French and you like a lot of cheese, that will give you a negative rating, because these all supposedly, you know, may be negative behaviors or negative consumptions based on your health. So when we looked at some focus groups who are in Ireland who are being questioned about, like, what do you think about these cards, that these contactless Visa cards, MasterCards, every single person here has one. What do you think about this card, and are you aware? The reason why it's free to tap and so convenient is because you yourself are data, you yourself are a currency, but we own it. Well, the kids were absolutely fucking terrified, and the focus groups don't really achieve many good results, and that's a big problem for everyone, I think, here in this room, to understand that every time you tap a card, that data is being traded without, maybe with your consent. You probably tick the box somewhere. So that's a big problem. Just to kind of understand the product side a little bit, I kind of promised I wouldn't go too much into this, because I don't like to really give the same presentation twice. I like to keep it like a bit fresh. So, but just so you can understand it here from the product side. So we have an app. You can activate your wristband if you arrive at a music festival. Ideally, you've gotten this wristband before the music festival. Like, we send it out to you if we have a partnership with the event or with the organizer of the festival. You can top it up using your fiat currency, using your cryptocurrency, of course, if you so wish. And we have a number of other products. So it's like generally wearables. So you can imagine this in, like, for the women, it's like in your spa. So if you're in the spa, or you're in like some of these places around, like Hong Kong, for example, you just have your wristband, and it tracks how much, like, your movement you're spending. You might go to the restaurant or something like that. You can imagine it as an everyday payments card, the same way as your MasterCard or something like that. You could, remember I was talking to Martin about his ATM. He didn't realize the ATM in the corner, which, if you're looking for cryptocurrency tonight, probably it works. That actually accepts an NFC. You can actually tap one of these cards against that, and you can actually load your cards with that. So you can imagine a club having a branded card, or you can imagine their membership card having one of these. So, you know, there's many utilities. You know, I was in an airline earlier. You can imagine using this for lounge access or something like that as well. So many different types of utility for making wearable technology like a convenient way to spend your cryptocurrency, but much beyond that. It's respecting the likes of Datum and Daicoin to understand, well, what do merchants want and what do consumers want. Overall, that's kind of like what we're doing. I guess, yeah, like look into the Altamer. I think he's a very interesting artist, and like him, he questioned assumptions that were made in society. The assumptions made by Foucault and the assumptions made by Adam Smith is that we live in a rational economy. We absolutely do not. We live in a very bizarre world. Little of it is understood. But when you actually get to have some real insight and you directly purchase data directly from someone and they've sold it to you, you can guarantee that that data is genuine, and you're eliminating the global market of stolen data, and you're beginning to understand what consumer trends are. For the first time, we can understand what the market is. So that's generally what cryptocurrency or what blockchain means to me. I hope to see you guys at Ethis tomorrow or something, and we'll be in Hong Kong until Sunday. If anybody wants to hang out or do something, please. I love Hennessy Road and want to understand a little bit more about the history here, and yeah, please say hi. Thanks very much.